You feel bored when there's nothing to look forward to, when what you're experiencing right now does not make you wonder what happens next. You work, you talk, you scroll, but they don't connect into causal sequences. Each event dies where it stands. Nothing builds toward anything. But why do we need build-ups and causal sequences in the first place? The human brain craves a peculiar nutrient called a story. We are narrative animals. We understand the world not as it is, but as it unfolds. Our brain cannot handle experience without organizing it in the form of a plot, cause and effect, setup and payoff, tension and resolution. This is how the brain does everything it does: predict, plan, learn, remember. It needs stories, not as decoration, but as infrastructure for its own sanity. Boredom is how it punishes you when you starve it of narrative. Boredom is the most acutely painful psychological state, so much so that it triggers instant coping mechanisms faster than anxiety, fear, or sadness. We can categorize our responses to boredom into four types. The first one is consuming fiction: games, books, movies, series. For a few hours, you spectate a protagonist that is not you, in a world that is not yours, temporarily satisfying your craving for structure and meaning. This is the neutral solution to boredom. Fiction functions like a flight simulator. We practice goals, conflicts, investigation, problem decomposition, and cooperation safely in an imaginary environment. Fiction exercises your narrative machinery without actively harming you. The second kind of response is fantasy, where you daydream about yourself as a protagonist. You spin up elaborate scenes in your head where you are the hero or the genius giving a speech on stage. You replay past conversations with better lines, simulate embarrassing scenarios from your childhood with different endings, and imagine yourself aura farming in the future. You address narrative deprivation by fabricating a story. There are no real stakes in a fabricated story because you decide the circumstances of the simulation. It also ruins your expectations of the real world once you return to it. What's more, once you start making up stories, you don't just limit yourself to the ones that feel pleasant. You ruminate about what others think of you. You make and engage in conspiracy theories. You catastrophize. You gossip, fabricating narratives about others' lives since your own no longer interests you. This is an actively harmful response to boredom. The third kind of response is fundamentally different from all the rest. Instead of attempting to satisfy the need for narrative, you try to silence the need itself. For this, you need to stimulate yourself in any way possible, like overeating, masturbating, compulsive shopping, or using substances to chemically numb your brain. But you don't need to go that far these days. Since the proliferation of the scrolling feed, it has never been easier to turn off your brain. When you're scrolling, you're not seeking information, nor are you seeking entertainment. You're seeking the blessed relief of cognitive shutdown. Each swipe provides a micro hit of stimulus without requiring narrative integration. No causality to track, no meaning to construct, just enough activation to prevent yourself from thinking. A person who resorts to these three modes of storification lives what we call a mundane life. There's a perpetual sameness to the nature of your days. You're tired all the time, existentially drained, and despite all the fantasies about a better future, your real life lacks a sense of momentum. There is no real story to invest in, which is why you need to distract yourself with fake ones. The mundane world is characterized by safety, predictability, and a lack of stakes. It has nothing to do with your line of work or how much you make. You can be a sportsman, a finance pro, a tech pro, a career artist, a model, a professional diver, anything, and still feel a drab sense of meaninglessness about everything, as long as you lack a sense of story. This is why productivity techniques and motivational videos barely ever improve the quality of your lived experience. You always relapse into procrastination. Choosing to work harder and smarter means nothing to you if the items on your to do list do not contribute to an overarching quest, adventure, or arc in your life. Now, there is a fourth response to boredom. This involves actually living a story. We know from experience that even if the mundane world corrodes you, its pull is exceptionally strong. To be powerful enough to undo the allure of the mundane world, This fourth response has to be exceptionally simple. Not easy, but simple. Because if it's not, no sane human will choose it over the mundane world. And a lot of humans clearly choose it, the proof of which we see in the exponential growth of the power, complexity, and reach of human civilization, which could never have happened if all of us just lived mundane lives. The rejection of the mundane world involves stepping out into the unknown. You go on an adventure, which doesn't necessarily need to be a physical one. As long as you encounter uncertainty, impose genuine stakes on yourself, and create something new, you're undertaking an adventure, a journey that has no prior blueprint. For most of history, only the elite had access to this through expedition, statecraft, science, art, and war. And then for the last 700 years, starting from the Enlightenment, as we progressed technologically, large swaths of the plebeian masses became the upwardly mobile middle class who could increasingly engage in creative endeavors themselves. But why would anyone leave the safety of a predictable life to seek something new? It is incredibly stressful to give up on a known and safe path and dedicate yourself to an obscure topic with no guarantee of ever achieving something worthwhile, while being constantly ridiculed by mundane lifers because you're triggering their insecurities. There must be a reward in the journey itself. What lies at the core of a storied life is a simple element called interest, passion, calling, drive, purpose. Many a term has been used to refer to this element, but I'm skeptical of these other terms. They introduce their own problematic connotations. The word interest, on the other hand, does not come with a lot of baggage. It doesn't imply a destination, a domain, or a direction. Interest feels like a pull from something out there in the world that wants your attention, that entices you to come closer, to investigate, to experience it. You rarely know what's pulling you at first. You only discover it progressively by following the trail. Say that you love watching football, but what actually grips you is the strategy behind the game: territory control, resource allocation, deception. But you don't know that yet. All you know is that after watching match highlights, you often somehow end up in military tactic rabbit holes. And then you find yourself watching videos on the history of logistics, then network theory, then microized systems and how forests distribute resources. You're following the deep structural similarities your mind recognizes across domains, building some kind of combinatorial expertise that nobody else has, because no one else is looking in the same places and connecting the same dots. If someone asks you to name the expertise that you're building, how it will be useful, or how you can make money with it, will you be able to answer no? And that is expected because, in Hero's Journey terms, the pursuit of interest takes you to the unknown world. You can do whatever you want with the knowledge you gain by pursuing your interest. Code an app over the weekend that solves a specific problem within that niche. Start a YouTube channel or a newsletter where you talk about your perspective and build a community around the topic. Formally do a PhD on the subject, then join a private equity firm to read industry patterns that no one else can spot. Build a portfolio of projects and then get a job in an obscure supervillain research lab. This is the journey home. You have defeated the monster and found the elixir. Now you bring it back to the known world. And then you go on the next adventure. You are now living a storied life. If someone chronicles how you lived, they will find a series of arcs over the course of your life, each of which follow the primordial pattern of a story. But somewhere in your development, this process was interrupted. Someone needed you to fit into a predictable box, to stop taking things apart and to stop being weird, to know your place and stay in your lane. Even the people who support your independence often need you to be predictably independent. Well meaning people could ask you questions like, what's your passion? You don't know what it is, and it's not fixed. In the fictional scenario above, you yourself could have made the mistake of prematurely deciding that your passion is football and consequently walled yourself in a field that would make you feel trapped later on. Similarly, very rarely can you know what your dream career is. The person who follows their interest creates a niche that didn't exist until they walked that specific path. So if someone sees you wandering around and discovering your niche, they would think that you're all over the place and that you need to focus. These interruptions aren't malicious so much as they're misguided. How and why they arise is a separate discussion. The lesson you unfortunately learn from them is that the pursuit of interest leads to criticism and redirection, that your natural process of learning, trying, failing, and being helplessly absorbed in something that looks useless at the moment makes you difficult, burdensome, off track, and unsafe. As a child, dependent on your elders and friends for survival, validation, and belonging, you adapt. You learn to trivialize your interests. You tell yourself that even if the pursuit of interest feels meaningful and invigorating, it can at best be a hobby. For all of human history, distribution was controlled by gatekeepers. You needed a publisher for your book, a gallery for your art, a studio for your music, a network for your show, investors for your company, credentials to prove your expertise. The cost of reaching an audience was prohibitive. The cost of producing at scale was astronomical for someone who doesn't come from money or doesn't have connections. Today, all you need is a laptop and internet. Many of you may have read Naval's iconic tweet storm on permissionless leverage that talks about this. Code and digital media are the two gifts of the information age, and they are inherently permissionless. No one can stop you from building an app. No one can stop you from recording a video or writing an article or producing a song. No one can stop you from hitting publish. The means of creation and distribution now sit on your desk. That is why we call it the third industrial revolution. It naturally leads to an explosion in technology and entertainment. The pursuit of interest has always been risky, but today it is less risky than ever to get started. You might ask, where's the proof? Why aren't more people pursuing their interests then? They are all around you. People are building apps and founding companies from their bedrooms that solve niche problems you probably never even heard of. They are making YouTube channels and building strong and engaging communities around the weirdest of topics. Writers are monetizing newsletters on extremely obscure fields, and many of these are outperforming legacy magazines in terms of readership. Podcasters, streamers, hybrid studios. You only hear about the popular ones, but widely successful projects exist in the nooks and corners of the internet. The infrastructure exists, the distribution exists, the audience exists. The numbers climb every quarter. So, yes, this is happening all around us. But even engaging in this question betrays the spirit of this essay. Because if you look for safety in numbers, then you're still moving with the mundane. You're still asking if it's safe to pursue interest, if others have validated the path, if the crowd has blessed your direction. It will never be safe to pursue your interest. And if you look for safety, you will make catastrophic mistakes. You will end up trying to build a B2B SaaS app in a domain that bores you to death, but you will still attempt it because venture capital is flowing there. You will create content about trending topics that you don't care about because the algorithm rewards it. This is the same old monkey business with even more burnout. You're still following a herd, just a smaller one. For an existentially fulfilling life, the next time you feel bored, try to shut down your fight or flight response in the face of uncertainty and pursue your interest. See where it takes you.